chairman of that supper for ages. And I, Roseanne do this, Roseanne do that, and I don't know where they came from, but get those eyes out of those potatoes. Yes, Mrs. Beebe, Nell Beebe, he was a doctor, a dentist here in the community. And she was in charge of jellies and pickles forever. For hospital supper, we had a solicitor's list, I guess is what you call it. We went from door to door. And it went from money for chickens to and jellies and pickles. The people donated, and we put on the tables. The fancy table was a big thing there. And they had nice linens, napkins, and hankies and things like that. And their specialty was aprons. And they used to hang them up. It was boards and sawhorses for the tables. And they had, I don't know if it was pipes or what, and they strung a string across there and hung all these aprons. And they had just dozens of them. My grandmother had a pedal sewing machine, and she let me sit opposite her and pedal it. She used to make so many aprons, these crazy memories.
And they sold them?
Sold them there at the fancy table. There was a men's committee, go back to Sherwood, a men's committee. And they were the ones that set up the booze, which was sawhorses and boards. And did whatever. The next big thing I guess they did on Monday night, they carved all those hams. We had chicken, fried chicken, chicken salad, and country ham. And they carved those hams for the dinner.
Yes.
Oh, another thing they did too. Johnny Stubbs got his dad's truck, and those boys went from park to park to park to get picnic tables for people to sit at to eat their meal. But I don't know, 3 or 4 of us went over to the kitchen, and we put, at that time we had Slor in little plastic cups, and we filled all those cups for the picnic the next day. And I could see it, if it was yesterday, looking out that window, seeing that storm go by. How many tents went down, the pole bent. Because then we had to go back over the grounds and get people to straighten the poles and put them back on. Thelma Bushby, who was a board member, suggested we go, the hospital was gone, or the old hospital was gone, it was just a park-like area like it is now. And she suggested we go back to the hospital grounds and have a picnic and bazaar. And here we are.
And here we are.
She came to Maryland, and I don't know the precise year. I probably told you something, but it was in the mid-30s, mid to late 30s, mid-30s. And she had graduated from nursing school in Charlotte, North Carolina, and came up here to live with an aunt in Washington. And she found this job out here at the hospital, came there, started working. Met my dad somehow in the community, and they got married. And I have a brother, and just the 2 of us. Had 2 kids, and my dad worked at the University of Maryland and farmed on the side. And my dad was on a committee for the hospital when they started the hospital supper. I mean, I don't know if it was when they started, but in the early years of it, where he was one of the ones to go around to the community and get donations for the supper that day. And it was, vegetables and meat and different things like that. And or people would say they'd give 5 pounds of butter or something. So, and then after that, my mother was on the women's board committee, and she and a relative of ours headed up the hams. They had country hams for the supper, and they would go somewhere in the area. I think it was in Carroll County, Westminster direction. Some farmer up there processed a lot of hams, and they'd order them ahead of time. They'd all come into go get them, and they'd bring them to Sandy Springs store to Mr. Hawkins, and he would store them until a day or 2 before the supper, and a bunch of the guys would get together and slice them, and he'd have them all all sliced there in trays and then this cooler ready for the supper on Saturday. And then, say, when we started farming up here in '54, my dad started furnishing the sweet corn, and we've furnished it ever since. And been 2,500 to 3,000 years a year a day for the event, and most of it went. A big part of it went to the supper, and the rest of it went to the country store that they had there at the bazaar. And we always went to the field that morning and always picked it fresh that day, and still do, even for our other places we take it. But we had my dad had a crew. Mostly were in those days were my brother and my high school buddies that worked for us in the summertime here on the farm. And we generally would start somewhere between 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning, pulling for the supper that day. And we'd try to have it there by 8 or 8:30. One year our crop was bad and we had to go to the Eastern Shore and get it. And from a farmer over there, and I got tied up at the bridge coming back. It was late. Getting to the bazaar grounds. The lady that was in charge, she ate me alive. But it was nothing I could do about it.
Well, my first job in 1968 was to cut the coleslaw and cut the cabbage.
How long did that take?
It took, I guess you got there like at 7 in the morning, and then by lunchtime, I think by lunchtime you were serving meals. It was all sit down, and the sit down dinner at that time, and you had sliced tomatoes and cabbage, and I remember one lady was Lydia Havlin, Mrs. Havlin, and she'd bring us. We used to cut the cabbage and put in metal buckets,
Okay.
like a scrub bucket, and they'd carry them, and then they'd take it in and slice it up some more, and then they'd add the mayonnaise and the sugar and the cream to it to make the coleslaw. And we'd slice tomatoes, but it was a really funny way in the beginning. I'll just tell you, all the guys from St. Peter's would come and help fry chicken, and they had some of the fryers and everything, and they would all participate in cooking the chicken and things like that. And at that time, all the chicken cookers would be drinking beer in the background. It got to be pretty wild out there. But all the corn, tomatoes, coleslaw, or cabbage, all that would be just local farmers would bring that in, and they'd cut it all up. It was a real community effort way back, and everybody would have their thing to do, and everybody would be particular. I do remember one year when the hams came from George Lecklider, was a big farm in Laytonsville, and he cured hams, and he would sell them the hams. They were real hams off the farm, and they would slice those hams, country ham. And I remember that, getting those hams and have to slice that ham, and if you cut it too thick or too thin or something, somebody would yell at you. A lot of yelling back then.
A lot of who was yelling?
Just some of the ladies,
The ladies.
and some of the elderly men, because they were so very particular, and they were really proud of doing it right, and it was done right, it really was. But people always came out to work, and I remember a lot of the older people that went, been gone for many years, where some of the people are still around that can remember just what I'm telling you. But I've seen a lot of people come and go and pass away and everything else, but every year it would come up, it would happen.
Yeah.
And then I guess I haven't missed it since 1968. I haven't missed one of them. And I guess kind of graduated up to the point that I was in charge of cooking the chicken, in charge of the chicken time. The ladies are always in charge of flouring the chicken, but I was making sure the fryers were run. And we used to have, also way back, and just to tell you, we used to have to maintain the fryers. In other words, we would hook our own gas up. We didn't have suburban propane at that time. I remember having to light the things, and they'd blow back at you, and then just a lot of good old days. And right up the street up here, matter of fact, Jamie Carr still works for me on the farm here, and his dad, Artie Carr, promoted us too to come help. And then he ran a little youth group right there in Brighton at the church there, boys group or something like that. I think it was boys club. And he got us guys up there working. And we'd set it all up, set all those tables up, set tents up. Plus we'd all help with the food and then be out there all night long putting it away. And
Wow.
of course he was with the Lions clubs then, and he had a Lions club here that was very active then, the JCs. But then you had all these members of the Catholic Church that used to come over there, and they always had a chicken fry too sometime in the fall of the year, so they'd use some of their fryers and a lot of their equipment, and everybody would come. And, you know, a lot of good community people and a lot of farm people too at that time.
Lifetime resident of Sandy Spring. And my mother was a member of the Junior Auxiliary of Montgomery General, which was one step below the Women's Board. That's it. They used to roll bandages for the hospital back in the day. So there was a connection there. It was about 4 years ago, somebody asked me at picnic at Bazaar, have you ever done this before? And I paused and I said, well, I started when I was when a young teenager, and I'm 75. So I missed for the 4 years while I was in the military. And did lots of different things. One year I was doing a public address system, and I had speakers. This was when we were at Sherwood Elementary, Sherwood High School before that. And I had speakers up on the roof of the elementary school building. So I was taking them down, and this is 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the ladies were packing away the books. As you know, the books is big business. And off to the west, I could see the lightning to the west. And when I got my last speaker down and into my VW, the skies just opened up. And as we've said, the hospital picnic bazaar has never been rained out, it's been rained on. And when we were in Farquhar, I worked in the dining room. I was jams and jellies. And the most important job for a guy, and I'll say this loud and clear for anybody that wants to know, the men did what the ladies told us to. That's the way that worked. So I was inside, jams and jellies. And the ultimate job for a man was to be a seater. You know, two over here, coat and tie, everything. So one time, one of the seaters, who was an old friend, came to me and said, Bill, I need you to cover these tables. So-and-so is going to take a break. Fine. And when I finished my shift, he came over, put his arm around me and said, Bill, next year we want you to be a seater. I thought it was being canonized. There was very, very little commercial stuff. Homemade coleslaw. There was a lady named Mary Hobbs who was around for a long time. Don't necessarily think she was a member of the board, but she was a strong community person. And she made a coleslaw dressing that was fantastic. And my Julie tried to make sometime, and it didn't come out right. So took it, showed it to her. She tasted it. Oh, when it's like that, you need to add a cup of Miracle Whip. Maryland Beaten Biscuit looks like a squashed golf ball. It's about that big. And it's probably similar to what the British had as hardtack. But it's made with flour, water, salt, and lard. And that's it. And you mix it all together and then literally beat it, traditionally with an axe handle. But many people would use a wooden mallet. And there were two ladies in the neighborhood up until the 50s at least, Mrs. P.G. Ligon of the Ligon family and a lady named Mrs. Henry T. Clark were the last ones to make them in the neighborhood. And they were wonderful. They had a little bit of springiness, but when you bite it, they were butter and country ham. Oh my God. So I think in all likelihood they were served back then.
Won a national award. In 2008, for the Picnic and Bazaar, with help of community and physicians, I nominated our fundraiser for a national award from the American Hospital Association. It is a very competitive award. One hospital nationwide wins in each of 4 categories. We won this prestigious award for our Picnic and Bazaar 93 years of fundraising. I have to illustrate this for you. How many volunteers, how many months of preparation? 6 months of planning and organization, over 500 volunteers, 15 chairs, 2.5 tons of chicken, a pyramid of corn, I think you heard about that earlier, and the addition of many community organizations to pull this off. This is a one-day event. We are 5 generations strong, and we have people in this room who are representative of those 5 generations.
Over the years, we certainly have done a little bit of everything. We did learn to save our money. Instead of doing lots of little projects for the hospital, we would donate larger sums. The first year that I was president was when the pediatric emergency room was opened, which the Women's Board paid the whole $800,000 for. And we immediately made a pledge of $1 million for the cardiovascular center, which was opened in 2005. And Pete was always there for us with a new project. We don't have to worry. It's not something else to be done.
Well, historically, it was the Artie's Army and the Sandy Spring Lions. And over the years, Sandy Spring Lions actually sponsored the Alney Lions. And so we formed a second club here. And after that, both groups actually got involved. The Sandy Spring Lions and the Alney Lions have set up the tents. The Sandy Spring Lions does the corn cooking. The Alney Lions do the parking. And recently we brought in the Leisure World Lions Club, and they run the big table. So I think you can safely say that all 3 Lions organizations in our extended community really get behind us.
The chicken comes from Metropolitan Poultry and Seafood. We order 5,500 pounds of chicken, and we get our hamburgers from them as well. The hot dogs, the coleslaw, the barbecue, all the other foods come from the hospital. We order it either through the hospital or they prepare the barbecue, the coleslaw, and the fruit cups. They prepare them, but they order the hot dogs and the French fries and the oil and all the other condiments for us. They don't actually, cook that. The barbecue they do, but back in the early years of the picnic, the barbecue was prepared by ladies from Sharp Street Church. And then all the workers, volunteers in the food section come from various areas. The fryers, Todd Greenstone organizes, he recruits and organizes the fryers every year. The people that actually clean and bread the chicken come from Sandy Spring Bank. The cashiers are run by Sandy Spring Bank volunteers. The food service line, which is headed up by Paul Hawkins, the volunteers for that section come from all over. Because back in the day, the men would husk and the women would silk. So they would have a circle of men husking the corn, and the women would be over with their aprons and their paring knives and their brushes, getting all the silk off the corn. And then the Lions Club, they cook the corn. And so it's a whole process. So but now, the hospital, one of the nurses puts a appointment on a lot of the hospital staff's calendars for 7:30 to come, and they husk corn and then they go to work. So, and then the to-go area is headed up by Amy Cohen, and those volunteers mostly she finds and are supplied by the foundation office. And facilities helps a lot in the hospital. So they put all the electrical wires, run all the electrical wires, all the refrigeration, they get the fryers and such tested. So they are a very integral part of the picnic and bazaar. Last year, in 2018, when the thunderstorms rolled through, and we really didn't know what to do, and we had volunteers backing out, and we had vendors people coming up and not really knowing what to do. But I thought I was awesome because I sat in the volunteer tent and watched people come in the parking lot, go to the chicken booth, the food service line, with their umbrellas, get their chicken, and get back in the car and leave. I thought that was just awesome. They didn't go anywhere else, but they wanted their chicken, and they were dedicated, and they came.
Yeah.
Channel 7 News came because they couldn't believe we were still up and open, because on the weekend, the tents went up on a Saturday, and Saturday afternoon, the tents went down because of the storm. The community came, we put them back up, and it started raining again, and we went on because you can't stop the train once it gets started.
Yeah.
During the week, the Lions had come because it was so hot, so they staged it during the week. They put all the parts together, and Todd Greenstone solicited some of his workers and some community members. And the Lions, they came out, they put all the tents up Saturday and Sunday. By Sunday afternoon, everything was up, looking good, ready to go. Well, Mother Nature had its own plan, because Sunday night it all went down. And then we had to reach out to community members through social media, through phone calls, and everyone rallied together, and it was all back up and running by Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. I mean, so it is a community event. This event is for the community, but the community came out and really rallied together. It has been like generations of people that did different things. Because I just learned the other day how Sue Connor, they used to help with cutting up the chicken. And Carol Derrick, same thing. As a youth, they did different things with the picnic. So it's multi-generational.